The news begins in West Africa, where President Bola Tinubu and President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil met in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia on Sunday, where the duo discussed strengthening bilateral ties across various sectors. President Tinubu emphasized the strength of Nigeria's economic potential and influence, saying the country is witnessing a leap forward despite some short-term reform pains as his administration is removing all encumbrances to business. He also explained that his administration is investing in critical sectors of the economy like healthcare, education, and agriculture to ensure all Nigerian citizens' welfare and create sustainable economic prosperity for future generations. In his remark, the Brazilian leader said Nigeria and Brazil once had a trade volume of more than $10 billion in the past, which has now plummeted to $1.6 billion, emphasizing that he is determined to strengthen bilateral relations. The Nigerian government has hit back at the opposition People's Democratic Party following its call for the resignation of President Bola Tinubu. Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, strongly rebuffed the PDP's demand for the president's resignation, questioning their credibility in solving the nation's problems. He noted that the call for resignation is nothing but a distraction since they could not effect change during their own tenure. The PDP governors, led by Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed, recently likened Nigeria's trajectory under Tinubu to that of Venezuela, urging both the president and the ruling APC to step down if they cannot offer solutions. The minister maintained that the president will not be swayed by such demands, and he remains resolute and undeterred by the challenges facing the country. Now, in the latest twist to the saga surrounding Saturday's All Progressives Congress gubernatorial primaries in Edo State, another candidate, Anamero Sunday Dekeri, has been declared the winner by local government returning officers. Now, this revelation marks the third time a candidate has been proclaimed victorious in what critics denounce as a severely flawed electoral process, casting a shadow over the party's commitment to internal democracy. Initially, the chairman of the Electoral Committee, Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, announced Dennis Idahosa, a member of the House of Representatives, as the winner with a significant 40,483 votes, seemingly aligned with the Senator Adams Oshomole faction. However, Stanley Ugboja, the returning officer for the primary, later declared Monday Okpebolo as the rightful APC candidate emerging from a parallel primary election in Benin. In the midst of this turmoil, APC National Chairman Abdullahi Ganduje has extended congratulations to Idahosa, hailing him for his victory. And now to discuss further on this, we'll be having our correspondent who is live in Edo State talking about Bernard Akede with us to discuss this. And we'll also be having Andrew Mwanta, immediate past Commissioner for Information, Edo State. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning, Honorable,
good morning.
First of all.
It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
All right, so before we go to Bernard, let's start with you, Honorable. First of all, with what has actually played out in APC Edo State governorship primaries, some members of the party have actually described the process as a total sham. And we have also heard that you have resigned, from the party. What is actually happening? Can you bring us up to speed on what is actually happening in Edo State and why you decided to resign?
Yeah, thank you. I want to start by saying that for democracy to work in Nigeria, parties must abide by their internal principles, their party guidelines as it relates to their elections, particularly their primary elections. And importantly, too, they must play according to the rules. Remember that sometime last week, the party, I think on Thursday, inaugurated, a committee of a two-fold committee to organize primaries in Edo State. First, we had a committee chaired by Governor Hope Uzodinma of Imo State, And we also had on the other side a chief returning officer, Dr. Stalin Waja, along with 18 local government returning officers whose duty, of course, was to ensure that in each of those local governments, they collated results and submitted same to the state chief returning officer, whose duty it was to announce the results. And from what we gathered on Saturday, we heard Hope Uzodinma, the governor of Imo, was not around, not even in the country. He went abroad for an engagement. So the understanding was that the other members of the committee will be on ground, including the governor of Cross River State. And of course, collation had started. They had announced the results for 8 local governments. Senator Omoni Okpewo already was leading with 6 local governments, and his closest rival, the member representing Ovia Federal Constituency, Honorable Dennis Idosa, just won 2 local governments. Only for us to hear that thugs were mobilized to the venue, they disrupted the place, and it's sad that the Commissioner of Police Edo State was there when this thing happened. Journalists were manhandled, their equipment like their cameras, their microphones were destroyed. We even saw a situation where an INEC official was brutalized, beaten to a pulp, and even the party officials that came from Abuja, sent by the National Working Committee. Only for us, about 2 hours later, to see Hope Uzodinma, who just came out of the blue and started announcing a particular person as a winner. I mean, this is not what we all fought for. This is not a democracy the likes of Kudirat Abiola and her husband, Edgar Abiola, died for. This is not the democracy Alfred Uwani of Blessed Memory died for. This is not even the democracy Ken Saruwa died for. And it is not the democracy I believe our president went on exile for. It's sad that under his watch, we have one man who now operates as an emperor, Adams Oshomole. You saw a viral, I think your TV station and others must have seen a viral video, where a man who is supposed to be a leader did a viral video saying that a particular candidate must emerge, talking to his people in a donut. So I think the president must call Adams Oshomole to order. This was the same reason why APC, when he was national chairman, lost Zamfara, lost River State through court decisions. And it's very clear that Edo is going on that trajectory. So when I even saw the national chairman of the APC, who is also a beneficiary of Oshomole's style of imposing candidates, because it was Oshomole that imposed Ganduje on the people of Kano as a candidate of the APC. That was how he became governor. The same with Hope Uzodinma. So
all right, we'll get back to you, Honorable Mwanta, but right now we actually have Bernard on the line. Hello, Bernard. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
Good morning.
All right, it's good to have you. It seems you actually had a very interesting weekend. Can you tell us about it? Everything seemed to be going really okay, and then it just went from 0 to 100, quickly, really, really fast. Please bring us up to date on what actually happened and where we are at the moment.
All right, I'll try to quickly summarize. And now, as journalists do when we're out on location and we need information, we communicate with one another. And such is what we did on Saturday after the primaries had been conducted. We reached out to other journalists from other media houses to let us know when and where the collation of results and announcements will be done. And when we got that information, we headed out to a certain hotel where we were supposed to collate the results. Everything looked, normal. Presence of police security. But on getting into the hotel, we saw that the venue to be used was the bar of this hotel, a very, very small space. Like some of the images, I believe you have some of the images on the screen there. I think that was the first red flag for me, and I spoke to the police producer about that. Very, very off, for me. But eventually we started recording and we were going live, and then we noticed some issues. Some stations started going off air. People were stepping out, coming back in. We tried to inquire what was going on. And then the commissioner of police arrived. But this was after about 9 out of the 18, I believe, local government results had been announced. Of those 9, 7 were won by one person and 2 were won by another person. Then the commissioner arrived and began to ask questions, who set this up, who were the people there. And that's where the whole confusion started. And then just after the commissioner arrived, some men came in as well, came into the venue of the results announcement center and, just unleashed mayhem. Scattered equipment, broke some equipment. They started assaulting some journalists there. I was outside looking for my own colleagues, And then, we tried to get away and get our equipment out of there. And then some more men came, and then it really got very messy. People were punched, people were kicked, assaulted. Some of us had to hide in bathrooms of the hotel. I was outside trying to make a way, and then they saw me holding my phone and believed that I was recording what was going on. And that's when one of them held onto my phone and then started to punch me, and the assault started, basically. Eventually, I had to let go of the phone and run for safety. Later, after calling back, they called me to come back, explain what had happened. They looked at the videos on my phone to see who were the people that were making these announcements and conducting that particular activity. And then after seeing that, my phone was returned to me. And, well, apparently, the guy who held me and assaulted me did apologize, stating that what he was doing was just to ensure that fake news was not being spread. However, I'd like to say that there could have been better ways to have done that. Officers of the Nigerian police could have come there and stopped whatever activity was going on, letting us know that this was not authentic. But anyway, that's in the past now. We see that there's still more confusion going on as to who exactly the winner of the primaries for APC in Edo State is. And well, one thing is certain, the drama is not over yet.
All right, but were any arrests made, as regards the violence that marred the primaries, Bernard?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, there were no arrests made. Those of us who were there were more interested in running for safety than waiting to see if anybody was going to be arrested. But while we were there was no arrests made.
All right, because, before the beginning, we actually saw that there was a lot of security, and it's really sad what happened. And apologies, and I'm sorry for that you actually had to go through that, Bernard. But thank you so much for joining me and speaking on this. All right, let's move on to my guest, talking about Honorable Andrew Mwanta. Thank you so much for reconnecting with us, Honorable. Now, you're actually speaking, and you're here to tell us the exact reason why you resigned. The exact reason, briefly, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think my party, as a ruling party in Nigeria, owes Nigeria the duty of providing good leadership. And the situation where we have a flawed electoral process, instead of the person returned by the chief returning officer, the governor who traveled abroad came in when an election has been concluded out of the blue and announced somebody who didn't win the election, who was losing, and the same person sent calls to disrupt the process. And my national chairman, or the national chairman of my former party, is congratulating one person without knowing the facts. I mean, I cannot be in that kind of party. The problem with the APC really is not with Mr. President, it's with the kind of leadership we have in the party structure. A party that encourages impunity. I cannot be part of that party. And of course, in my letter resigning from the party yesterday night, I stated the provision of Section 40 of the Constitution that guarantees me a right to freedom of association. That right also entitles me to dissociate myself from any group organization that does not respect the rule of law. And I must commend Mr. President because he's trying to sanitize Nigeria, but I think the charity must begin at home. So he must sanitize his party.
All right, Honorable.
The national chairman of the party, not to be partisan.
Honorable, now talking about the leaders,
I'm able to express myself.
I seem to remember party leaders promising commitment to internal democracy. But from what we've actually just seen that had transpired in Edo State, is this what oppositions actually say has always characterized the ruling party, where a particular candidate is, forced on the members?
I think that's just what is playing out. I remember when I left my former party, this was the same reason I gave them in the PDP. And when I joined the party, I had the privilege of meeting Comrade Adams Oshomole. We exchanged notes. I told him the reasons why, of course, some of us had issues with him, because in 2016 he imposed the Obaseki, and we feel that that style of imposition should not continue. And that is why I felt, I thought he was a changed person after I became a senator. I felt, as quote unquote, a distinct senator, he will be able to provide leadership. But unfortunately, on the eve of the primaries, a video went viral where he was actually imposing a candidate, saying that this particular person is the person that the people of the party should vote for. I mean, that is not the place of a leader. You should play the role of a father. And Oshomole as a person, and I'm sorry to say, maybe it's because of his level of education, we have a president who went abroad to study, and that's what has played out in his style of leadership. As governor of Lagos State, our president did very well. And as president, I think Nigerians must give him the opportunity of taking us out.
All right, well, thank you so much, Honorable Edward Mwanta, yes, for joining me and speaking on this. He's the immediate past commissioner for information in Edo State. And with that, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, News Central Now continues. Stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Now, Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo State has made a significant announcement aimed at alleviating the impact of Nigeria's rising cost of living. Speaking during the inauguration of the newly completed 12.5-kilometer challenge Odo Ono-Elewe Elebu-Akpata Road in Ibadan, the state capital, Governor Makinde announced the extension of the 25,000 wage award for workers in the state by an additional 6 months in response to the economic challenges facing the nation. Governor Makinde was joined by his Enugu state counterpart, Governor Peter Mba, for the inauguration ceremony, where they both reaffirmed their commitment to improving the lives of their constituents. The newly commissioned road was named after late Chief Theophilus Akinyele, a former permanent secretary in the state.
Let me also use this opportunity to talk about the meeting we had a few days ago. We, the governors of the People's Democratic Party, including my brother here, His Excellency Dr. Peter Mba, we met in Abuja, and one of the key issues we discussed is the economic hardship our people are facing. Our focus at this time is helping our people overcome the challenges of the times. We have been paying salaries and pensions without fail on the 25th of every month since this administration came into office. And for every year since 2019, we have been paying 13th month salary every year.
To take this moment to congratulate my brother, your governor, the people-friendly governor, and his team for the event we're witnessing here today, for the construction and completion of this massive 12.5-kilometer road. For me, this is not just an event to mark the cutting of a ribbon. It is a testament, a bold testament to the governor's quest of leaving lasting legacies to humanity. And that is what we're witnessing here today.
Well, let me say, Copper Construction Limited is known for quality construction of roads. We have been in the business for the past 35 years and still on. This road will be no exception. This road is built up of quality materials. We're talking of stone base of 200 mm. We're talking of binder course, wearing course. It has concrete line drains all over the whole 12.5 kilometers on both sides. So it has all the features to stand the test of time.
The suspended National Treasurer of the Labour Party of Nigeria, Ms. Oluchi Okpara, has challenged the party's national chairman, Julius Abure, to give an account of the donations received from Nigerians in diaspora during the campaign tour of Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi in the United States. The national leadership of the Labour Party sent Okpara on a 6-month suspension last week following her claim that Abure diverted 3.5 billion naira allegedly raised from the sale of nomination forms and fundraising activities in the build-up of the 2023 general election. But Abure maintained that there was no 3.5 billion naira raised, saying total summary of the money that entered into the party was 1.3 billion naira and 800 million naira for the campaign. And moving to security issues, the Nigerian police authorities have issued a stern warning against any potential violence during the upcoming two-day demonstration declared by organized labor to protest against the high cost of living in the country. In a statement released on Sunday, the police authorities made it clear that they will not tolerate any form of unrest as they are committed to ensuring the safety and security of all citizens during the protest. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Labour Congress has laid out fresh conditions ahead of the minimum wage negotiations set to commence today. These developments come amidst concerns raised by the African Development Bank about the economic stability of several African nations, including Nigeria. With fuel and commodity prices on the rise, there are fears that this could further worsen social unrest. Delta State Polytechnic in Ogwashuku, Anyocha South Council are of the rich, the area of the oil-rich Niger Delta State has been shut down for 1 week following the incessant attacks on students' hostels in parts of the community by hoodlums. The rector of the institution, Professor Emmanuel Achenu, announced the closure of the weekend for the safety of students as they are expected to resume academic activities on Monday, February 26. However, the State Police Commissioner, Abaniwanda Olufemi, had summoned the area commander and the divisional police officer in Ogwashuku over the matter, adding that the institution was closed because of possible protest by students. Now, the police boss said security has been beefed up in the Polytechnic town, stating that the force is entirely on top of the situation. In the northeastern state of Edo State in Nigeria, the government is appealing to the international community for support for its basket fund, which aims to assist in the resettlement of displaced persons and the repatriation of refugees. News Central's Umaru Kirawa reports that the fund is set to provide much-needed resources to help rebuild communities ravaged by conflict and assist individuals in starting a new life in their ancestral communities. Thousands of refugees residing in the Republic of Cameroon have shown willingness to return home.
So we are extremely grateful. We have seen what has happened here, and I believe more communities will be resettled. I'm calling upon other countries in the world to donate to our basket fund, two of our basket funds, especially one, the Regional Stabilization Facility Fund, which is being managed by UNDP still, as well as the one UNOFA, which is managed by UNDP, but still implemented by the government of Borno State as well as UNOFA.
News Central now returns after the break. Thank you for staying with us. Some eminent Nigerians were over the weekend recognized by the Sun newspaper for various achievements through the year 2023. At the event, Innocent Chukwuma, the chief executive of Nigeria's auto manufacturing company Innosun, Tony Elumelu of Air Holdings, and Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, as joint men of the year. News Central's Uzonna Ononye tells us more.
For some of the dignitaries, walking into the hall was anticipatory, while others came with fanfare. Sustaining a tradition that began 21 years ago when Mike Adenuga received the maiden award of the Sun Man of the Year for the inroad into and expansion of Nigeria's telecom space through his Globacom, has been a task the newspaper takes seriously as a means of rewarding hard work and inspiring greater stride towards excellence.
The year 2023 for Nigeria and as a nation and Nigerians as a people was remarkable and challenging. In the midst of all this, there were Nigerians who weathered the storm and stand tall today to be counted. We are here to celebrate and honor them We are here to tell a story to the fact that with the excellent use of our human and capital resources, something good will come out of Nigeria.
For the chairman and publisher of the Sun newspaper, opportunities to the younger generation which may come through representations should not be taken for granted.
The youth is now, and although we are coined as the future, we can also take advantage of the present. However, in having more young people in positions of power, that doesn't make it enough. I think that the bridge between generations is strengthened through mentorship and guidance.
Initial formalities now done, it was time to begin the business of the day. One category after the other, the awardees were called up to the podium, some physically present, others represented.
From my humble beginning, as a street hawker in my community, Agoiwe, I'm standing before you today, receiving the Baka of the Year award. Is inexplainable from all indications.
Some of the awardees shared what this meant to them.
I think it's a call for duty, because no matter what happens in life, there are positives in every situation. Things are bad now, but if we stay down, we remain down, we gotta be inspired, dust ourselves up, rise up and to challenge.
There's a global downturn at the moment, but all the same, I'm sure you heard when the president gave an assurance and said that we need to go through this now to be able to come out better on the other side of all the reforms that are taking place. So all I want to say is, please, we need some patience. We need people to get on board all what is going on.
Over the years, there has been a growing number of awards where individuals are singled out for recognition from thousands of competitors in every field. Now more than ever is the time to see the value of such excellence celebrated manifest in all parts of the nation's existence in addressing those burning issues threatening the future of the country. In Lagos for News Central, Uzonna Ononye.
The prevalence of out-of-school children in Nigeria has become increasingly worrisome, especially as the number continues to rise despite interventions. Experts, however, charge the government at all levels, including states with huge numbers of out-of-school children, to put all hands on deck in providing necessary solutions and changing the narrative. News Central's Omolola Ololade tells us more.
Globally, children are entitled to free and quality education. Yet, the number of out-of-school children in the world is alarming and on the rise. The rise is particularly evident in sub-Saharan Africa, with Nigeria at the epicenter. The 20 million out-of-school children in Nigeria, according to the Universal Basic Education Commission, include the girl child in northern Nigeria, boy child dropout in South and Southeast regions, internally displaced and Almajiri children who are predominantly found in northern Nigeria. Despite interventions by the government at all levels and other relevant stakeholders to address the menace of out-of-school children, the number has continued to increase.
Our population is going to double by 2050, and so we're going to have over 400 million Nigerians. And to your point, if we continue at this pace, we're also going to double the number of out-of-school children. In fact, not only the out-of-school children, but even those who are in school.
While the urgency of addressing the challenge of out-of-school children requires much more than the 68 billion naira lifeline under UBEC, funding remains a crucial part of reversing the ugly trend.
This is also telling you that whether it's 10 or 20 million, it's a huge issue that needs a lot of funding. But it's beyond funding. What are the strategies that we can deploy? Then one thing is clear: we cannot build enough schools fast enough, because every year more children, come into the equation. Children are born every day, every minute. So every year, children become of school-going age, and there are no schools. So one thing is clear, that we don't have enough schools in the country.
It's called out-of-school children, right? Not out-of-school youths or adults. So I feel most of the funding should come for basic education, which is primary school level and the junior secondary school level.
Beyond funding, deploying technology to address the problem of out-of-school children will make a huge difference, according to experts.
We have an issue of a lack out of school children. Why haven't we deployed technology in the way that we did during that time to reach all these children to learn? Why haven't we deployed technology to gather the data to really identify, where are they? Where are the children who are not in school, and how can we reach them?
The consensus is that education is the cornerstone of economic growth and national development of any nation. Hence the need for government to use its transformative power in shaping the future of the country. In Lagos, for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
Morocco's Navy has rescued 141 African migrants on board a boat that experienced difficulties while sailing from Mauritania to the Spanish archipelago of Canary Islands. The rescue was carried out on Sunday, about 274 kilometers southwest of the city of Dakhla in the Western Sahara Desert. Moroccan Navy said the migrants had left the Mauritanian coast on 10th February. Last year, the Canary Islands received nearly 32,000 migrants, the highest number recorded since 2006. In January, Spanish authorities said they continued to record a surge in migrant arrivals to the islands, with most boats originating from Mauritania. Militia fighters killed 15 people in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo's troubled Ituri province, local sources said on Sunday, in the second such attack in less than a week. Reports allege that Codeco militia, which claims to defend the interests of the Lendu group, again targeted victims from the rival Hema tribe. Codeco fighters ambushed users of a road near the village of Tali, where they stopped 15 people, including one woman, on Saturday afternoon, said Jules Suba, leader of Jugu Territory Civil Society. The militiamen are said to have tied them up and undressed them before killing them. Some victims had their throats cut, others were shot dead. Thousands of people took to the streets in Tel Aviv, Israel, calling on its Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's resignation and an early election. However, Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dismissed the idea of holding early elections. Netanyahu has said or seen his popularity plummet in opinion polls since Hamas' October 7 attack that sparked the devastating war in Gaza. Now joining us on the news is Roland Marks, broadcast journalist, to discuss this. Hello, Roland. Thank you so much for joining me on the news.
Much for having me.
All right, so Roland, what can you tell us about the protests that happened in Tel Aviv? How widespread are the anti-government protests in Israel, especially Tel Aviv, and also other cities across Israel?
Well, there is a growing frustration and anger with Prime Minister Netanyahu and members of his government, because we are now on day 136 of Israel's war with Hamas, and we still have 134 hostages, plus the bodies of hostages that were murdered by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. And there is a growing anger that the government is not doing enough to ensure the release. Israelis are expressing, make a deal, whatever deal, let's just get our hostages back. We need them back. We are very, very concerned. The oldest is a Holocaust survivor. He is 85. The youngest is 1 year old. He turned 1 in captivity. He was taken hostage at 9 months. And there is a growing frustration that not only has the Prime Minister not done enough and is maybe too focused on defeating Hamas rather than releasing the hostages, and also there is growing frustration that out of all the officials that have accepted responsibility for the lead up to the 7th of October atrocities, that the Prime Minister minister hasn't been the one to say the buck stops with me, it is my fault. And many Israelis are saying we want early elections.
All right, now, Rolene, talking about the growing frustration and the grievances, driving people to protest against the government, how have these protests evolved since the beginning of, Israel-Gaza conflict?
Well, it's a great question. The protests are growing. Right now, they are pretty much limited to Tel Aviv around Hostage Square, deliberately because that is where the families of those still being held hostage and where released hostages congregate every Saturday to bring the attention of the government and of the media to the plight of the hostages. So we are seeing them growing on a Saturday night. The frustration, the anger, and of course, the impressing need to ensure that the plight of the hostages remains the focus of the government.
All right, but how has the government responded to these protests and also the demands from the citizens? And also, if you could tell us if there have been any notable clashes or interactions between protesters and security forces in Tel Aviv or elsewhere.
There haven't been any clashes between protesters in Tel Aviv and any of the police. Israel is a democracy. People have the right to protest. And the protests have been very, very peaceful. We are a country that is still very, very deep in trauma, very deep in mourning, and we are all united on that front. There are arguments within the government in Israel between various factions and between various personalities that say where the focus should be. The leader of the opposition says, we need to make a deal, no matter what the deal is, let's get those hostages back. And the Prime Minister is focused on military victory. That seems to be the message, that he is saying. Yes, he is saying, bring the hostages home. We need to release the hostages. But there is growing dissatisfaction that he is reluctant to make a deal at any cost. Israelis say we will absorb the pain. We don't mind the cost. Just bring our people home. Bring them home now.
All right, Rolene, but how are the anti-government protests impacting public opinion and support for the government's handling of the Gaza conflict?
Well, right now, Israelis are of the opinion that we have to focus on our hostages, getting them back. And yes, we want Hamas defeated, so we see a new security reality on the border, and our citizens can return safely to their homes. Once that is done, we very much want to see an investigation. There is already an investigation by the state comptroller. I, as a journalist, have already been asked questions from their perspective. We already have the comptroller conducting investigations, but Israelis want the Prime Minister and those responsible to take responsibility, perhaps for not being focused on security and focusing elsewhere. Now may be not the time, but I can assure you that Israelis have a lot of questions, and we are going to want them, in fact, demand that they are answered.
All right, well, thank you so much, Rolene Marks, for your time and also speaking to us on this.
Only a pleasure.
Now in business, the African Development Bank Group announced in its latest macroeconomic performance and outlook report that Africa will host 11 of the world's 20 fastest growing economies in 2024. The continent's real gross domestic product growth is forecasted to average 3.8% in 2024 and 4.2% in 2025, surpassing the projected global averages of 2.9% and 3.2% respectively. The 11 fastest growing economies and their projected growth rate of 2024 are Niger, 11.2%, Senegal, 8.2%, Libya, 7.9%, Rwanda 7.2%, Cote d'Ivoire 6.8%, Ethiopia 6.7%, Benin 6.4%, Djibouti 6.2%, Tanzania 6.1%, Togo 6%, and Uganda 6%. The NGX All-Share Index and market capitalization appreciated by 1.97% and 2% to close last week at 104,421.23 and 57.158 trillion naira respectively. Now it ended with a total turnover of 3.893 billion shares worth 95.147 billion naira in 69,117 deals that was traded last week by investors on the exchange floor, in contrast to a total of 2.981 billion shares valued at 57.873 billion naira that exchanged hands last week in 67.962 deals. The financial services industry, measured by volume, led the activity chart with 2.64 billion shares valued at 47.654 billion naira traded in 31,929 deals, thus contributing 67.81% and 50.08% to the total equity turnover volume and value respectively. The oil and gas industry followed, and in the third place was the conglomerates industry. Staying with equities markets, Delta Property Fund, a real estate firm, has been fined 7.5 million rand and censured by the Johannesburg Securities Exchange for misstating its financials between 2018 and 2020. However, the JSE suspended 5 million rand of the fine linked to certain conditions being met. The JSE and Delta have issued statements on the fine and censure, which comes as another financial hit to the embattled SA Real Estate Investment Trust, also called RATE. The JSE suspended Delta's listing back in December 2020, effectively halting trade in its shares. However, the suspension was lifted in July 2021 after the group's new management restated the RATE's results and gave an update on forensic investigations into former executives. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our top stories. We told you that Nigeria seeks stronger economic ties with Brazil as President Tinubu meets counterpart at African Union Summit. We also told you that Codeco militia kills 15 in Democratic Republic of Congo. And finally, you heard that Morocco Navy rescues 141 Africans off Atlantic coast. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, StarTimes channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.